There was no need to mention who he was. I understood it as well as the soldiers did. They mumbled hurried apologies, and their footsteps moved away. Not long after, we heard a door lock click shut, and then there was only silence. They hadn't opened the crate. What now? I demanded in a whisper. Are we just supposed to wait here until they come back for us? By no means. Mr. Ambrose's tone was back to cool efficiency. The hint of defeat that had been there earlier was nowhere to be found. He grabbed hold of something lying beside me, and I saw a thin object sliding past my face. His cane. What are you doing? If I am not mistaken, the soldier's rough handling of the crate has loosened one of the boards. I may just be able to slide the blade of my sword into the crack and use it as a lever. Don't move an inch. The blade is sharp. I froze as above me I heard the slither of steel on steel. There was a creak and, for a moment, a small beam of light fell in through a crack in the wood. Then, the light was blocked by the figure of Mr. Ambrose. He raised himself up as far as he could, sliding his sword into the crack he had discovered. Then, I felt his muscles bunch. There was a crunching sound, and suddenly light flooded into the crate, not the weak, bluish light of the moon, but bright, golden sunlight. It is morning, I exclaimed. Of course, Mr. Linton. We have been at sea for. He pulled his watch out of his pocket and let it snap open. The coat of arms on the lid flashed in the bright morning light. Single quote ellipsis. Exactly 7 hours, 38 minutes and 4 seconds. Dalgleish must have taken a roundabout route to avoid being spotted. 7 hours. I clapped my hands to my face. Blast. That means that by now, my aunt must have noticed I am gone. What am I going to tell her? Mr. Ambrose gave me a look. Oh, how I had missed that icy, spine-chilling gaze. That, I would say, is the least of our worries, Mr. Linton. Then you don't know my aunt. Instead of replying, he sheathed his sword again, and shoved the cane through the hole that he had created in the wall of the crate. With a sharp pull, he twisted the cane, and another board flew away, clattering to the ground. He repeated the procedure again, and again. Then he nodded, satisfied. The hole should now be broad enough for an average person to climb through. I will go first. Wait here. And before I could utter a single word of complaint, he was already out of my sight, sliding out of the crate like some sleek, dark spectre. I listened intently, praying that there was no guard posted outside. Not a single sound came from outside the crate. I waited. 1 minute went by. 2 minutes. What the heck is he doing out there? 3 minutes. He can't take this long, can he? 4 minutes. Something has to have gone wrong. What if there is more than one guard out there? What if Mr. Ambrose? 5 minutes. What are you waiting for? Go and look for him. Maybe something has happened. Maybe. All clear. Suddenly, his perfect granite face appeared above me, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Where were you? I hissed. Checking. Checking for what? Soldiers, Mr. Linton. There are none present, either in here, or out there. How do you know? I climbed to one of the windows and looked out. All I saw was the sea, over the tops of trees, and a path leading downhill. Not even one guard. I do not like to repeat myself, Mr. Linton. No, there were no soldiers. But that's strange, don't you think so? Exceedingly, which is why I would suggest we leave this place before things change from strange to normal. Come. He disappeared from my view, and I gathered that now it was my turn. Slowly, I sat up. Every muscle in my body ached from lying down this long, and with so much weight on top of me. I tried very hard not to think about who that hard, muscled weight had belonged to, and gripped the edges of the hole in the lid above me to pull myself farther up. With a groan at my protesting muscles, I stuck my head through the opening. Looking around me, I saw a large, bare room, with lots of crates piled in every corner and sacks lying on the floor. Light filtered in through a few unglazed but barred windows high up on the wall. Dust motes danced in the light, and somewhere I heard the little footsteps of a mouse, or some other small animal, hurrying across the stone floor. What is this place? I whispered. I do not know, Mr. Linton, but at a guess, I would say, a warehouse. It looks like nobody ever comes here. Let us hope so, or they will find you still half in the crate when they do come. Now get a move on. Yes, sir. Immediately, sir. Pushing my arms through the hole, I hoisted myself further up and, bit by bit, emerged into the outside world. This went fine until my waist had slid outside. Suddenly, I encountered resistance. Gripping the boards to either side of me, I pushed harder. I didn't move an inch. Again, I pushed harder. Nothing. What are you waiting for, Mr. Linton? Mr. Ambrose was standing a little way away from the crate, his gaze fixed on the door of the warehouse, prepared at any time for an enemy to come through it. We have to go. One final time I pushed, to no avail. I can't, I growled. I don't seem to fit through the hole. Certain generously endowed parts of me, anyway. The hole should be big enough for an average person, Mr. Linton. Well, then maybe I'm a special person, I hissed. At least that's what my little sister always says. Will you get rid of another board, already? Manners, Mr. Linton. Will you get rid of another board, sir, before somebody comes along and shoots us? In 2 seconds he was on the crate, his cane in hand. Placing it under the nearest board, he pushed down. There was a crack, as if from a pistol shot, and the board flew away. I popped out of the crate like a cork out of a bottle. Hurriedly, I slid down until I stood firm with both feet on the ground, and started to dust off my rumpled uniform. Thanks, I grumbled, my face 2 shades darker than normal. He, of course, didn't even deign to notice my flushed cheeks. He was already at the door, sliding it slowly open, and peeking out through the crack. There is nobody in the vicinity. Come, and he slipped outside. Mumbling a very unladylike word, I followed him, and stepped out into a world of wonder. I didn't know exactly what I had expected the island stronghold of the evil Lord Dalgleish to look like, but this was certainly not it. We stood in a courtyard surrounded by a charming, low stone wall. Moss and other foliage grew out of the cracks in the stone, and it was just the right height to comfortably sit down and have a picnic, an idea to which the rest of the surroundings would have lent themselves beautifully. The courtyard was surrounded by charming, little knobby trees, from which drifted a delicious smell of pines and the sounds of a busy wood. The sound of frolicking squirrels and twittering nightingales mingled with the distant rush of the sea. Bees flew between beautiful flowers which peeked out from between the foremost trees' roots, and a robin fluttered across the courtyard to disappear in the forest on the other side. What the heck? I looked from left to right. Did we get sent to the wrong address? Eden, instead of Evil Fortress. Mr. Ambrose opened his mouth, but I never found out what he was going to say, because all of a sudden, we heard footsteps from around the corner of the warehouse. I hesitated for a moment, and then it was already too late to flee. A man came around the corner, and stopped in his tracks as he spotted us. Blast. I'll marbo. I wanted to step back, run away, anything, but Mr. Ambrose's hand closed around my arm like a vice, holding me in place. Don't move. His voice was barely audible. We're wearing our uniforms. He might take us for one of theirs. Slowly, the man started forward again. His eyes traveled from me to Mr. Ambrose, and back again. Finally, he bowed. Bowed, to us. Bonjour, messieurs, he proclaimed. Puis-je vous offrir un verre de lemonade glacée? I swallowed convulsively. What is he saying? I whispered. Is he telling us that we are going to get shot? No, he is asking whether we want a glass of iced lemonade. What? I stared at the man, nonplussed. Only now did I notice that he was wearing a white waiter's jacket. What does he mean? He means to offer us a drink, Mr. Ambrose told me coolly, as if he had expected all along to be greeted in Lord Dalglish's secret abode of evil by waiters wielding glasses of lemonade. He turned to the man in the white jacket. Non, merci, je suis assez frais comme ça. This, whatever it meant, didn't seem to deter the fellow. He smiled a broad smile under his pointy moustache and gave another bow. Une tasse de café, peut-être. Oh, you un repas léger. Messieurs, vous avez l'air un peu pale. Non, mais Paris vous nous indique le bâtiment principal. Il semblerait que nous avons perdu notre chemin. The waiter beamed and bowed once more. Bien sûr, monsieur, souvez-moi, s'il vous plaît. And he marched off. What did you say to him? I demanded. I asked him to direct us to the main building. Mr. Ambrose set off after the waiter with long, determined strides that didn't give a hint of his having been cooped up in a wooden crate for most of the night. I hobbled after him, cursing my burning and itching muscles. The main building to what? I have no idea, Mr. Linton. I've never been here, remember. But that means this fellow could be leading us right into Lord Dalglish's headquarters. I doubt that will happen. Not unless Lord Dalglish has started using French waiters to guard his perimeter, which I consider a remote possibility. We followed the mysterious waiter along a path thickly lined with ferns, trees and other flora, down a gently sloping hill. The trees were of a rugged beauty, maltreated so severely by the ceaseless wind blowing in from the sea that they were almost bent double, but still stubbornly standing. They were grouped so closely that we could not see anything on either side of the path for some time. Yet suddenly, the flora retreated, and I looked on a sight such as I had never seen before. A horror beyond all the horrors I could have imagined seeing in this stronghold of evil. A terrified gasp escaped my mouth. That can't be, I whispered. Mr. Ambrose looked on the spectacle for a moment, then nodded gravely. Yes, here, in foreign countries, such practices are not considered reproachable. But they are doing it together, everyone, in plain sight of each other. Yes, as I said, you are in England no longer, Mr. Linton. Wide-eyed, I gazed down onto the beach in front of us, where multitudes of people were laughing, running about, and swimming in the water. People of both sexes. Very well I remembered the bathing places in England where, when women wanted to bathe, they did it in the confines of a bathing machine, a marvelous contraption in the form of a horse-drawn carriage without a bottom, which was pulled into the sea and protected you from all prying eyes. Here, in the country of baguettes and revolutions, women seemed to have no inhibitions about letting the men see them in their swimwear. Moreover, unlike in England, this swimwear did not consist of several heavy, knee-length gowns and a giant hat, under which the woman could hardly be detected. Not only were the feet, calves and knees, yes, knees, of every female on the beach clearly visible, so was pretty much everything else up to an area which, in England, ladies wouldn't even have thought of, much less dare to mention. I stared at the women for a good 2 minutes. Then, suddenly, a point of more immediate importance than French standards of morality occurred to me. Why, I asked Mr. Ambrose, does Lord Dalglish have a crowd of bathers on the island that is supposed to be his secret hideout? That is a very good question, Mr. Linton. And I do not have the answer. Come on, our guide is getting impatient. Indeed, the waiter was already several steps ahead and gesturing for us to keep up. He seemed to find nothing strange about the sight down at the beach, which made my cheeks glow with heat. Frenchman, unbelievable. I sneaked a quick glimpse at Mr. Ambrose. He didn't seem to find it unusual, either. Had he been at many such places? Had he seen a lot of female knees? Quickly, I clamped down on the thought. We were here on a secret mission. Mr. Ambrose's bathing habits were none of my concern, and neither were any female knees he might have studied. By now, the waiter had vanished around a corner. We followed him, and found him pointing up to a building rising up above us. Voilà le bâtiment principal, monsieur. It wasn't the ruin of a castle. I admit, my adventurous imagination might have run away with me a bit, imagining Lord Dalglish's secret headquarters, but still, I hadn't expected anything like this. The building was large, and painted in a brilliant white. 2 rows of wooden supports, one stacked above the other, supported a raised veranda and balcony, and a pair of majestic white steps led up to the first floor. Rows of large windows glinted in the sun and, above the main entrance, words were painted in a cheerful blue. Hotel de la Mer Azur, the Hotel of the Azure Sea, Mr. Ambrose translated. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambrose, sir. My French extends that far. I looked from the hotel to the crowd of happily gossiping people sitting on the veranda. Do you think it is possible Lord Dalglish's ship has landed on the wrong island? Silence. When he hadn't answered after a few more moments, I looked sideways at him. His eyes were glittering. I don't think so, he murmured, and the glint in his dark eyes grew. I don't think so at all. Oh, that man, he is a genius. A group of children ran by, laughing and screaming. They were not screams of pain. One of the little pests pointed at me and yelled, "Hey, regardes cigars. En il par un chapeau totalement ridicule." And they burst into laughter. What did he say? I hissed at Mr. Ambrose. He complimented you on your manly appearance, Mr. Linton. Really? Yes. Focus, Mr. Linton. The infant is of no importance. Putting a finger in each corner of its mouth, the infant started pulling faces at me and dancing around me, chanting, "Chapeau gaga, chapeau gaga." French brats had a bloody strange way of showing their admiration. His little fiendish accomplices were cheering him on. I tried to chase them away, but I might as well have tried to chase away a swarm of hungry mosquitoes. This is insane, I growled. On the contrary, Mr. Linton, Mr. Ambrose wasn't paying the slightest attention to my fierce battle against the little fiends, but was instead studying the hotel and the beach with dark intensity. This is brilliant. Dalglish's style, executed to perfection. Blinding people with glamour. So perfect, and so him. Bending down, my little tormentor picked up an acorn and chucked it at my hat. I ducked just in time to prevent it being knocked off. Glamour. To be honest, I can't see what is glamorous here, sir. You just wait, you little snot monster, till I get my hands on you. I beg your pardon, Mr. Linton. Sorry, sir, wasn't talking to you, sir. Focus, Mr. Linton, focus. Yes, sir, of course, sir, come here, you bloody little blackguard. Mr. Linton. Sorry, sir, so sorry. What was that you said about Glamorgan? Mr. Ambrose made an impatient gesture at our surroundings. Glamour, Mr. Linton, glamour. This hotel, the tourists, the pretty beaches, all is a disguise for the real purpose of this island, to serve as a center for some, if not all, of Lord Dalglish's less than legal operations. That purpose is also the reason for the headquarters being on the French side of the channel, i.e. outside British jurisdiction. He let his eyes wander over the scene before him, the glitter within them reminiscent of freshly fallen snow. It is perfect, the perfect place. I must see whether I can persuade Dalglish to part with it somehow. I was so stunned I nearly didn't manage to duck the next acorn that came flying at me. Had I heard right, surely he did not mean that he, too, engaged in illegal operations for which he would need a place like this. I took a look at his cool, granite profile, at the glitter in his dark eyes, and suddenly, I wasn't so sure anymore. Dear God, what manner of man did you get mixed up with, Lily? And worse, you didn't just get mixed up with him. You let him kiss, but no, that had all been pure imagination. An acorn hit me in the forehead, jerking me painfully from my thoughts. Why, you darn little rugrat. Excuse me, Mr. Linton. Didn't mean you, sir. Sorry, sir. Focus, Mr. Linton, focus. Yes, sir, but let me respectfully point out that it is hard to focus while being pelted with missiles, sir. It is simply a matter of concentration. Now listen closely, Mr. Linton. We need to discuss our next move and coordinate our plans. Fine by me, I said, ducking the next acorn and making a grab for the brat's sleeve. He danced away, cackling like the devil. We need to split up. We need to gather as much information about this place as possible, and we can do that more quickly if we do it separately. I will go to the beach and ask questions there. You will go to the hotel, where the staff is likely to speak English. Our aim is to find out where exactly on this island Lord Dalglish's headquarters is located. He will have to have privacy for his operations. Try to determine, unobtrusively, mind you, whether there is some place both locals and tourists avoid, or some place that is out of bounds for any reason. Such a spot would be the ideal center for Dalglish's operations. Understood? Yes, sir. Only, sir, I ducked another acorn. It will be rather difficult to make unobtrusive inquiries with this little beast on my tail. Is that all? Mr. Ambrose turned his attention towards the brat a few feet away from him. Only now did I realize that the little snot monster had so far only chosen me as a target for his missiles, not aiming a single one at his mightiness, Ambrose the Icy. I didn't have long to ponder the reason for this. Mr. Ambrose advanced on the child until he was standing right in front of it. Slowly, he bent down, until his face was on one level with the child. The little brat's fist, already holding the next acorn, slowly sank down until it hung loosely at his side. He made a mistake and met Mr. Ambrose's dark gaze. The fist opened, and the acorn fell to the ground. Toy, Mr. Ambrose said, his voice calm and cold as the Antarctic. V18, Maintenant. The brat gave a little rat-like squeak and whirled around, scampering off as fast as its feet would carry him. I stared after him in disbelief. So, Mr. Ambrose announced. That's taken care of. What in heaven's name did you say to that little beast? I demanded. Straightening, Mr. Ambrose shook his head. I never disclose my secrets, Mr. Linton. With that, he left me standing and turned away, off to gather information among the laughing crowds of people on the beach. Thank the Lord he was wearing the uniform, and not his black tailcoat. In his usual attire he would have stuck out like a crow in a flock of popinjays, but in his fake uniform, he fit in quite well with all the officers walking around the hotel in uniforms of different nationalities. In fact, he looked the handsomest of them all. Quickly, I shook my head, ridding myself of that strange thought. What was it doing in my mind? I had a task to accomplish. Free of the acorn-throwing fiend, I started up the path to the hotel. But I hadn't gone half a dozen steps when, around the corner of the hotel, I glimpsed another veranda. On this one, several small tables stood, looking very decorative, with white lace tablecloths and vases of yellow iris in the middle. At the end of the veranda hung a sign which, in large blue letters, said, Cafe. At the tables, people were drinking tea and eating. Delicious smells wafted over, carried by the morning breeze. I hesitated. My eyes wandered between the cafe and the entrance to the hotel. I had a duty to perform in there. But then, I also had a pretty pressing duty to my stomach. It gave a big rumble, reminding me of just how long it was since it had been properly filled. Bad, Lily, bad. You have work to do. Yes, my stomach could wait a little longer. I was no ravenous animal. I was a rational, strong, independent lady, and I could resist. Suddenly, among all the other smells wafting over from the cafe, I caught one that I hadn't detected before. A smell I would have recognized anywhere in the world, the delicious, mind-boggling odor of chocolate. My feet started moving, and before I realized it, I was across the veranda, inside the cafe, and in front of a counter with so many delicacies displayed on it that I hardly knew what to choose first. Bugger, well, who needs to be a strong woman on an empty stomach, anyway? Behind the counter stood a broad man with a brilliant smile and a moustache that was so magnificently pointy you could have impaled somebody on it. Excuse-moi, I tried to unearth my few words of French. Je verrai, je. Oh, do not bother yourself, monsieur, the man said, his smile lighting up even more brightly. Me, I of course speak the language of the Englishman. We have many Englishmen here, so it's good for business, eh? And no worry about English money, either. Now, monsieur, he pointed to the counter. What would you like? Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. 5 minutes later, I sat at one of the little tables, chewing contentedly and sipping a cup of tea. The birds were singing, children were playing, at a safe distance, the sky was blue, and for the first time in days I felt really content and relaxed. I was about half finished with my meal, when the calm was disturbed by a cool voice at my ear. I thought, he said, every syllable studded with shards of ice, I told you to gather significant information. I have, I said, pointing to the crescent-shaped object in my hand, half of which I had already devoured. For example, I found out that the French are fantastic bakers. They have invented this thing called a chocolate croissant, which is a kind of crescent-shaped bun with chocolate mousse inside, and it tastes simply divine. Do you want to try? It appears, he said, his tone climbing a few more steps down on the thermometer, that you and I have very different ideas of what constitutes significant information, Mr. Linton. Probably, sir. Unfortunately, I myself have not been able to ascertain anything useful about the island. People seem not very inclined to engage in a conversation with me. In spite of your manner being so warm and friendly. Fancy that, Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Be silent. As you wish, sir. I took another bite of my croissant. Something useful like, maybe the fact that there is a ferry service down at the harbor on the other side of the island. Would you consider that useful? His eyes darkened. How do you know that? I took another bite of my croissant and licked a bit of chocolate mousse off my thumb. Then, I jerked it over my shoulder at the smiling man with the pointy moustache, who was just now selling a piece of cake to a young lady in blue. My friend over there mentioned it. It's amazing what people tell you once you've bought a cup of tea and a chocolate croissant, for which you will have to pay, by the way. Did you know, for instance, that there is an abandoned salt mine up in the mountains? None of the locals or tourists dare to go there, because it's supposed to be haunted. They know it's haunted, because now and again, they see strange lights up there at night, and because the few people who did go up there, never came back. Indeed, Mr. Linton. I licked another bit of chocolate mousse off my finger. Somehow, I managed to suppress a grin. Yes, indeed, sir. Raising his hand, Mr. Ambrose stroked his chiseled chin thoughtfully. His gaze wandered to the mountains rising in the center of the island. Well, in that case, I think we'll have a look at this mine. I would like to meet a few of these ghosts. Can I have another chocolate croissant, first? Mr. Linton. Coming, sir, I'm coming. Mine and yours. It only took me one look over the bush to be certain we were in the right place. Quickly, I ducked down again and whispered, that's it. Lord Dalgleish is here. How do you know? Mr. Ambrose inquired, not looking at me, but staring through a gap in the foliage at the man standing at the entrance to the abandoned mine. That's not Dalgleish. I don't see him anywhere. Yes, but the guard at the entrance. He's wearing a French uniform. He's not one of Dalglish's men. Oh yes, he is. That's just it. I recognized him the moment I saw him. He was one of the men on the ship, one of those who were on deck when I climbed aboard. Immediately, Mr. Ambrose's eyes turned sharper, more focused. They seemed to drill into the man who was standing at the entrance to the old mine, right in front of a worm-eaten old sign that said, Danger. Ne par entrancer. Well, if I can forge a uniform, then second Dalgleish. He might not even need to. Maybe he is actually in league with the French. They cannot like the idea of a canal at Suez under the control of an Englishman any more than he does. I stared at him, incredulously. You actually think he'd consider treason? It wouldn't be the first time. There was a moment of silence while I tried to digest that piece of information. All right, his voice finally cut through the silence, cold and controlled. There are two possibilities. Either this guard is genuine, in which case he will turn us back with a few polite, pardon, messieurs. I told you he isn't genuine. Or you are right and he is in Dalglish's pay, in which case he should take us for soldiers of the presidency armies and let us pass. He shot me a dark look. But in that case, there is no return. Once we're out in the open, we have to keep going, down into the mine. Do you understand, Mr. Linton? I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. I assume it would be of no avail trying to convince you to stay behind. I raised an eyebrow. After I've come this far, you want me to stay here and miss all the fun? Are you mad? You have a strange definition of fun, Mr. Linton, and you don't have one at all. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Be quiet. Yes, sir. Methodically, he took his watch out of his pocket and fiddled around with the dials. I wanted to ask what he was doing, but that would have been rather incompatible with staying quiet. Finally, he seemed to be content, and put his watch away. Mr. Linton. Yes, sir. Are you ready? Yes, sir, I am, sir. Then follow me. Slowly, he rose to his full height. Stepping out from behind the bush, he advanced on the guard in French uniform, his stride perfectly confident, as if nothing in the world could turn him back. I followed close at his heels. The guard turned his head and spotted us. Bugger, please don't shoot us, don't shoot us, don't shoot us. He didn't make a move. Was he just too startled to react? For one moment, I questioned my own memory. Was he really one of Dalglish's men? His French uniform looked perfect to the last button. He could have come from a parade on the Champs-Élysées. But if he was Dalglish's man, and saw through our disguise. He reached into his pocket. Oh God, what was he going for? His gun. He pulled out a pipe and lit it. We were only 10 yards away now. His eyes followed us closely. 7 yards. 6. 5. Please don't get suspicious. Please don't. Please. He took the pipe out of his mouth. 3 yards. 2. 1. We were past. He hadn't stopped us, hadn't acted as if we were there at all. The tunnel swallowed us, and we continued on, down into the darkness. I had been right. This was Lord Dalglish's lair. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. I don't know how long we wandered down the gloomy tunnel. In the half-light, interrupted only by the occasional burst of brightness from an opening in the ceiling, time seemed to stand still. Or at least, to me it did. To Mr. Ambrose, as the quiet ticking of his pocket watch reminded me, time was always running, and he had to catch up. At some point, rusty rails began appearing on the ground beside us, and we saw 1 or 2 mine carts lying keeled over on the ground. Spiderwebs hung from the rusted iron and from the low, vaulted ceiling over our heads. Ahead, a point of light appeared. What is that? I asked. That, came Mr. Ambrose's reply, his voice as dark and cold as the tunnel around us, is where Lord Dalglish is. His pace quickened. I almost had to run to keep up with him. The light in front of us grew larger and brighter, until the tunnel finally opened up, spat us out. My mouth dropped open, and this time not because of seeing women display their knees on the beach. We were standing at the edge of a huge natural cave. The ceiling high above our heads was a monster's jaw, armed with stalactites as tusks and teeth. Torches hung from iron brackets on the walls, their smoke disappearing through a dark hole in the ceiling. With the view thus not obscured by smoke, as it usually would have been in any mine, I could clearly see the figures that stood and marched all around the giant cavern. Soldiers. No French uniforms here. These were all soldiers of the presidency armies, proudly proclaiming their allegiance in colors of blood red and blue. They rolled crates around on mine carts, patrolled along the walls, or carried messages. All was a buzz of activity, and over the heads of the busy little underground kingdom hung the sign of their king, the 2 golden lions. He's not very concerned about concealing who is behind this, is he? I asked, staring up at the huge banner. He doesn't have to be, Mr. Linton. Mr. Ambrose wasn't looking at the lions. His eyes were already wandering over the crowds of soldiers, as if he could wrest the file from them by the pure force of his gaze. There, breath hissed through his teeth, and he made a sharp motion with his head, not daring to attract attention by lifting his hand to point. There, do you see him? I looked, and I saw. Lord Dalglish was stepping out of a wooden building that had been erected on a higher level of the cave, only accessible via a single staircase, built on wooden supports along the stone walls. There, Mr. Ambrose whispered. His eyes were not following Lord Dalglish, but were fixed on the wooden hut. That is where he keeps the file. It's the ideal place. High up, easy to guard, difficult to reach. Like an arrow shot from a string, he started towards the stairs. I had a hard time keeping up with him as he wove through the maze of stalagmites and soldiers. We reached the bottom of the staircase in no time at all. What if we meet Lord Dalglish on our way up? I hissed into his ear. With his usual loquacious eloquence, Mr. Ambrose made a jerking movement with his hand over his jugular. Thank you so much for your reassurance, sir. You're welcome, Mr. Linton. Truth be told, I had expected nothing less, but still, the thought made sweat appear on my forehead. Slowly, we began to ascend. We were about halfway up when my worst nightmare happened. I heard footsteps from above us. Mr. Ambrose's steps didn't falter. He continued upwards as if nothing had happened. A man appeared in front of us, in the uniform of a colonel. He stopped dead as he saw us. What now? Is he going to offer us iced lemonade? Hey, you two, what the blazes are you doing here? Apparently not. Private Williamson and Private Jones, sir. Change of guard, sir, Mr. Ambrose said, deadpan, and snapped to attention. Thank the Lord I had enough presence of mind to emulate him. Really? The colonel frowned and took a watch out of his pocket. I didn't think it was time yet. No, it isn't time yet. You are early. What is going on here? His eyes narrowed suspiciously, and I had to work hard to resist wiping the sweat of my forehead. Really? Early? Mr. Ambrose's voice rang with honest surprise. Are you sure, Colonel? Colonel Townsend. Are you sure that we're early, Colonel Townsend, sir? Taking his own watch out of his pocket, Mr. Ambrose let it snap open. Sorry, sir, but according to my watch we're exactly on time. Look. The officer stepped up beside Mr. Ambrose and looked over his shoulder. Struth, you are absolutely right, soldier. It's just time for the guard to change. How the time flies. And my watch is very reliable, sir. Looks like it. Colonel Townsend glanced at the silver pocket watch with admiring eyes. Mine is such a modern piece of trash. Yours looks like a much nicer piece. A family heirloom. A muscle in Mr. Ambrose's jaw twitched. Suddenly, he didn't look nearly as much like the obedient soldier of a second ago. Yes, why? The officer seemed taken aback by such abrupt tones from an underling. I just asked because the crest on the lid looks a little familiar. With an obvious effort, Mr. Ambrose forced a polite mask on his face. My father gave it to me, sir. His father. I stared at him out of the corner of my eye. Mr. Ambrose had a father. Did that mean he had actually been conceived in connubial congress, not hewn out of the rock of some mountain, as I had always suspected? Could it be true, or just another lie to put the officer off? I see. The colonel shrugged. Well, you may continue, men. I'll have to go and reset my watch. And he went off, mumbling about unreliable modern mechanics. We continued up the stairs. I did my best to try and appear calm, ignoring the fact that my heart was pounding and my head was buzzing with 1,000 questions.